All right, Bill, we alive. Thank you so much for taking out some time.
Oh, of course. My pleasure.
So let's talk about It's a Dog's Life, currently airing on Disney Plus. How did this show come about for you?
It was an unusual set of circumstances, kind of serendipity, really. We hadn't planned it, but a friend of mine, Steve Duvall, who's a cameraman with the show The Amazing Race,
Sure.
after he did that for like 20 some seasons, and he lives in Reno. And
Okay.
he was doing a local story up there, trying to just come up with some ideas to keep busy. And there's an equestrian center up there that has a lot of horses, a lot of hounds, walker hounds, like the old English fox hunts and everything. So they
Sure.
would get exercise for the horses and the dogs by going out on fox hunts. There's no foxes, so it's just kind of for exercise.
Sure.
And Steve asked me to be the host of this show. Well, long story short, the footage we got back, me playing with the dogs, just kind of jumped out. And we together decided, well, maybe we should do a show about dogs. So my wife, who originally was totally afraid of dogs, when I met her, she hated dogs. Just she was scared of them. Over the years, she's come to love them as much as I do. And we put together a sizzle reel, and we're able to get it in front of Disney Plus, who bought the series on the spot. 10 episodes. First time I've ever pitched a series. First time we've ever even done anything like that. And they loved the idea, and thus it was formed. And then we spent a few months getting employees and getting a studio and all of this other stuff that you have to do an on-camera show.
Sure.
And then from September through January, we've been, or February, I believe, we were shooting the show and then editing, and now it's on air.
So, what's your favorite part about traveling all over the country, seeing all these different animals?
Well, when I do the voice of Goofy and Pluto and the other animated characters, it's me in a room with a microphone, not too unlike being on a Zoom interview, really.
Sure.
You're stuck in one place, and it's an imagination kind of world we live in, so that we have to imagine what the characters are doing and act to that, kind of
Sure.
act to what we have in our heads. Whereas going to all these wonderful places and seeing doing things that I never would get to do any other way, chasing whales, getting buried in the snow and avalanche dogs rescue me, getting stuck in pipes and dogs finding me, or seeing, going to a zoo, behind the scenes, petting a cheetah, all these other exciting things that we've been able to do. It's just a whole new world for me, and it's very exciting.
That's cool. I was going to mention it. What's it like coming out from the recording studio and being in front of the camera for this show?
I generally am more comfortable behind the microphone, but I find that I get pretty comfortable on camera if all I'm doing is asking questions that I think the people at home would like to know the answer to. And I kind of forget about myself and just kind of go with it and enjoy the dogs and the amazing things they do. And so I kind of forget the camera's there a little bit, and
That's
it makes it a
cool.
little easier on me. But I'm not used to being on camera. So,
No, but it's cool, man. We've really been enjoying the show. It's fun.
oh, thank you.
So, what can we expect from some of the future episodes?
Oh my gosh. Well, as I mentioned, we went to Telluride, Colorado, where I get buried in the snow with avalanche dogs. That was
Sure.
interesting. And one of the coldest episodes we did, we were at
Sure.
14,000 feet, which it's a
Wow.
little hard to, move around a whole lot without getting winded. We went to Hawaii, where we did 2 episodes, dogs that
Wow.
find snakes that can actually get in vehicles and cargo that's coming into the state. They don't want them to get out and start populating and messing up the environment there. So these dogs find the snakes. We also had dogs that on the island of Kauai in Hawaii.
Sure.
Um, the state bird is the nene goose. It's
Okay.
related to the Canadian goose, but a little different. It's only found in Hawaii. They're rare. They were down to with 50 of them in the world, but now there's thousands of them due to conservation efforts. And the dogs there keep them away from populated centers, keep them away from the airport, because you don't want to
Wow.
who's getting in front of a plane that's landing. And the dogs keep the nene geese safe. Uh,
Wow.
we've also had, this last weekend, I think this week right now is airing Jojo the surfing corgi, which that was fun. I got to try and do my hand at surfing. I'm not that good at it. And also the bee dogs, which I found fascinating in Maryland, where we had the only two certified dogs in the United States that can smell a disease in beehives. And to keep that, sometimes they ship beehives all over the country to help pollinate like avocados and walnuts and who knows what. But they don't want to spread this disease around, so you have to make sure that the bees are healthy. These dogs do that.
Holy cow, that's wild. That's really cool.
And then we have water rescue dogs coming up. We have, next week, I believe, we have our show dogs, dogs that do stunts and do, jump through hoops and all sorts of tricks. And that's their living. They're performing dogs. And that's coming up next week.
So you mentioned that there's going to be 10 episodes. Is there a chance for a second season?
It seems very likely that we will. We haven't heard official word yet, but we've got about 50 stories, and we're planning, if we get a chance to do that, some international stories as well. There's a lot of great stories around the world we'd love to explore, and all we have to do is wait for Disney to say, go get them, and we'll be off and running.
Wow, that's incredible, man. I love it. So when you started voicing Goofy in '87 and Pluto in '88, did you ever think you would still be doing this today?
No, because when I got the audition back in December of 1986, and my first job was in January of '87, it was for one job. It wasn't like I was signed to this big contract that you're now the voice of Goofy forever. Sure. It was for one job, and I was very excited to do that, but I didn't know if there'd be a second job or a third or anything. Sure. And they kept using me, and now I've done it probably 3,500 times, maybe close to 4,000 different times for the Disney company over the last 33 years. And I'm on about 4 series now, and recording from my house. I have a studio here in my house, and the COVID, the pandemic has not slowed me down in the animation world.
I love it. That is so cool. And how do you switch from playing yourself to voicing these characters?
I was one of those weird kids that did a lot of impressions, and I'd see a guy on television, like I'd watch Green Acres, and I'd start doing Mr. Haney's voice, or John Wayne, or a lot of the other old actors, and I just practiced these voices, and it was kind of a joke in the beginning, but I just kind of have that ability to do that. When I started doing Goofy, for the first year or so, it was an impression of Goofy from what I'd heard in the earlier cartoons. Sure. But after a while, you kind of put your spin on it, and we're kind of melding into one. So I'm kind of becoming Goofy, and I think he's becoming me a little bit.
That's cool. That's really cool. And you voiced at least 4 characters in Mickey Mouse Mixed Up Adventures. Goofy, Pluto, Miss Pig, Mr. Big Pig.
Actually, now I heard the other day I've done about 23 or 4 different characters on Mickey and the Roadster Racers, which became Mixed Up Adventures as they expanded where they go around the world. And so, yeah, about 20-some characters I've done on that series.
That's incredible. Do you find it hard to kind of juggle each role?
Not really. Sometimes, though, if I come up with an incidental character, like you're the hot dog vendor, and I come up with maybe a voice like this, hey, here's your hot dog, and I forget what I did, I have to have them play back a reference from an earlier show so I get, that voice, and then I'm lock into it pretty quick.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. And Goofy recently joined the gang in Ducktales. Yes. What was it like working on that show? And can we expect Goofy to come back in any future episodes?
Hoping. I'm always the last to know. They'll call me up and they said they need you on Ducktales this week. So I never get an idea of, yes, we're going to, they kind of keep us in the dark on that kind of thing. But it was great. And it was a little bit different because it was the episode I did was kind of almost like a sitcom. It had like canned laughter.
Yeah. That was a good episode.
Goofy from Goof Troop, which was my first series back in the early 90s. Sure. And it was fun revisiting that incarnation of Goofy.
That's cool. That's really fun. And speaking of future episodes, any word if there's any new episodes coming up for the Mickey Mouse short series coming up?
Yes, we're still producing them. We're still, but again, well, I do one every few weeks or so, but I never get these scripts ahead of time, maybe one day ahead of time.
Wow.
So I don't have anything scheduled this week, but that will probably change by Wednesday, this being
Excellent.
Monday right now.
That's really cool, man. Looking forward to more episodes of that. And, this year is the 25th anniversary of a Goofy movie,
Yes, it is.
which
Yeah.
is a big deal. Can you kind of reflect on the fan base behind this film? I mean, it has quite a fan base to today.
No, it really surprised me and delighted me to find out how much people love this movie. I knew it was a great movie when we did that because my son was around 5 years old when it came out, and it affected him, and I think my relationship with him. And of course,
Sure,
when I was talking to Max, I was thinking of my son,
sure.
how I would talk to my son, and it became a buddy picture for me and my son Austin. And over the years, probably the number one project I've ever done was a Goofy movie. People will come up and say, I couldn't talk to my dad very much, but we'd play the soundtrack in the car or we'd watch the movie, and it brought us closer together. So I knew it had a lot of heart and meant a lot to people. But when we had a reunion of the cast at the D23 convention a few years ago,
Sure.
um, I mean, that really blew my mind. We got about a 2.5 minute standing ovation. The place was
Wow.
packed. People were out in the hall waiting to get in. And I'm going, oh my gosh. When I came out on the stage, the applause was like, it's like being one of the Beatles or something, Just come out. I looked around like, who
Who's
came
behind
out?
me?
And just the reception was just so delightful and wonderful. I couldn't believe how much people still love this movie after 25 years. It's got a lot of legs, and it's one of those like a Nightmare Before Christmas. It's gotten a
Sure.
bigger audience the longer it goes on. It's kind of an unusual film in that regard, but I'm so delighted that people like it so much.
I have my Powerline shirt. I'm just
Oh,
not
do
wearing it right now. Should have worn my Powerline shirt. It would have been perfect.
Yeah, I think I've got one too that shows the perfect cast.
Yep. That's hysterical. That's so funny. And my daughter is a huge fan of Amphibia.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
how's it like
Hop
working
Pop
on
there.
that show?
Yeah, I play an old frog, so I'm not only dogs now. I'm frogs. That's a lot of fun because I got to come up with a voice on that. Whereas stepping into the shoes of Goofy, I had to copy what had already been done. It
Sure.
used a little bit more freedom to kind of add stuff to the character, and he's a real fun character. And I love doing Amphibia. And yeah, a lot of great adventure. I don't think they premiered the second season yet, and
Not yet. No.
done recording the second season. And so there's a lot of neat stuff that's coming up. It should be really, really good.
That's a lot of fun. That's cool. And you voiced Yosemite Sam, Sylvester, Foghorn Leghorn in the movie Space Jam.
Yeah,
Any
which was on
chance?
last night on TV.
And yeah, it's actually playing at a local drive-in by my house.
Oh, really?
Swear to God. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
my gosh.
So any
Foghorn Leghorn was my favorite voice from that movie.
I love
I
it.
can't do Sylvester around people. I can do it on Zoom because I spit on people. Fuckatash. There's a lot of spit that goes with that one.
Hold on, I gotta clean my screen real quick
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
Any chance you're gonna be reprising those roles in the new Space Jam movie that's coming out?
They have not called me, and Warner Brothers is a little different than Disney in that they, a long time ago, wanted one voice for each of the main characters at Disney. A lot of people have done different characters, Mel Blanc's voices in Warner Brothers, and so I hope they do, but they haven't called me yet.
Cool. Now, here's a fun one, I think. Other than Goofy and Pluto, what would you say is your favorite Disney character?
Oh my gosh, there are so many that I really like. The ones I have not Some, actually one of my favorites that I would like to voice, maybe a villain. I never get to do villains. Maybe
Sure.
Pete or a wizard or something. But I've done a lot of wizards over the years. From like I'm trying to remember, but well, obviously Mickey would be a great one to, I mean, he's the big cheese, so
Sure.
that would be a great one. He's really a great character. And Donald would be a great one, but I can't. It's hard for me to do that one. That's all I can do.
That's good. That's good. That's good, man. So, last question I got is, what's it like being considered a Disney legend? Because
That
that's an
was
incredible.
It was an incredible event, and it was an incredible honor. I was so humbled when they decided to make me a Disney legend. That was back in 2009, and our awards ceremony was the very first one done for the public. Before
Sure.
that, they were all done on the Disney lot in the Legends Plaza. But to do it live in front of about 4,500 people at the Anaheim Convention Center was just mind blowing. And I got my award along with like Robin Williams and Betty White and all of these great stars. And so meeting Robin Williams was cool.
That's
That was
awesome.
wonderful. And then they put my hands up in brass, big plaque on the Disney Legends Plaza. And I just feel so honored to be in the company of all these great stars, and kind of gave myself a little immortality knowing that my handprints will be there for forever, I guess.
That's wild, man. That's really cool. Well, listen, Bill, I appreciate taking out some time. That's all the questions I got. And I want to thank you again.
Gorge, it was my pleasure. He's